It seems that most spiritual traditions, religions, what have you, wisdom paths, all begin with typically one person having what is called the religious experience, the mystical experience that, there's so many terms for it, awakening, where suddenly, spontaneously, unexpectedly, they're transported out of their everyday kind of contracted state of consciousness of this is who I am, I'm this person doing this, living this role, functioning in this way, to this blown wide open perspective of no barriers between what's being perceived and the perceiver and all of this. And I know when we spoke at our first interview, you mentioned having an experience similar to that when you're sitting in your pickup truck years ago. I had a similar experience in my youth after fighting years of depression and suicidal ideation. And it seems like that is the impetus that starts the search for, well, what is this really about? And spiritual culture, in a way, capitalizes on that, right? It capitalizes on the fact that experiences like that happen, and it tries to market it or explain it in a way that then can be packaged and turned into a philosophy or a doctrine, dogma, technique, all of that. But experiences like that do happen. So I wanted to get your take on how do you think that kind of experience, that religious experience or that awakening experience, fits into the totality of what we call human experience?
Mm-hmm. Well, human beings are capable of a very wide range of experiences, and I've certainly had some startling experiences of let's call it merger with all and everything, where you, myself, the ordinary myself, recedes into the background, let's say, and you feel a kind of oneness. I had this one very startling experience many years ago, but now it's a rather common experience that I have, and not really mind-blowing anymore because I'm accustomed to it. But well, I thought you put this very well in your book. I think it's the first one. I haven't really had time to read all your books. They're worth reading, but I have so much to read these days, and most of it's not about this theme at all. I'm very interested in science right now. But you compared this kind of awakening experience to an orgasm. And I thought that was a very useful analogy, because you can't keep having an orgasm all day and night. There's no way to function. Even if there were some way to keep that state of mind going, I don't think there is. But even if there were, it wouldn't be very useful to live that way. And the other aspect of it is, okay, you had the orgasm and that's beautiful and everything. But if you met someone who had never had an orgasm and tried to describe that to that person, they wouldn't really be able to understand it. They might understand the words, but that wouldn't give them the experience. And that is really my critique of all this spiritual teaching. The teacher sits there on a throne and describes how wonderful it is to be enlightened and all the rest of it. And the miserable people in the audience aspire to that, but the words of that teacher cannot provide it for them, at least not the way I see it.
Yeah, and I would add further that even if, arguably, even if it was possible for a person to live in a state of pure orgasm all the time, I don't know if that would be desirable, but even if, and they were somehow able to function, my broader point is, so what? If that's not what my experience is right now, or somebody else's experience is right now, then it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if Elon Musk has, $285 billion, and I will never know what it's like to live in Elon Musk's choose, and he will never know what it's like to live in mine, right? My life is my own experience, and that's what I have to honor, and that's kind of the only focus I can honor. And it seems that the entire industry is orientated around trying to manufacture an ideal state, and that is placed on a pedestal over this ordinary eating, shitting, fucking, doing the taxes life that the vast majority of people have, because it's not sensational, I feel. So how do you make something that's so unsensational appeal to somebody? How do you sell someone's normal life back to them? You know, that's always been the challenge for me, and I'm wondering how you approach that.
Mhm. Well, you call it an industry, and that's a very strange way to look at it, although a common way to look at it. In a capitalist society, such as the US, everything is organized around corporate welfare and making a buck. And this topic that we're discussing does not lend itself in any way to being marketed. What is marketed is bullshit. Bullshit. Because the teachers do not speak honestly about their human experience of waking up in the morning and needing to face the day. They refuse to do it because they have no particular expertise in doing that. And reading the Bhagavad Gita will not give you any expertise in how to do that, how to maintain an ordinary life, how to be a lover, husband, father, an employee, or an employer. None of that can be learned from a spiritual teacher. They have no expertise. If they did know about those things, they might not need to be a spiritual teacher to make a living. John Troy and I have discussed this in detail because he is an entrepreneur and an expert in branding. And he pointed out to me all the many cases of how branding is accomplished in the spirituality industry. And I have no interest in that at all. I'm an old guy. I feel good about life and about myself and the people I know. And I'm just looking at sharing that. Yes, some of that is a so-called spiritual outlook because that's part of life, but it's not all of life. The most important thing is to get up in the morning and live, not have your head in seeking some kind of transcendent experience. Because as you just pointed out, even if you had that experience, and even if you could keep that experience going on, which I don't think we can, but even if you could, so what? Do you want to actually spend your life in a perpetual orgasm? I know I don't.